Good afternoon. We're going to do a quick tutorial on 2D profiling and engraving cuts in RhinoCam. Right now I have my drawing set up in Rhino. It's currently 32 inches by 48 inches long. You can get a full-size sheet of plywood in and draw that. If you look right now, all my line work is pulled up 3/4 of an inch. That 3/4 could be 5/8 or 1/2 inch depending on how thick your material is. All my line work is joined and closed, so the file is set up cleanly. And then we'll go over setting up the stock, which is this kind of gold orange color right now, and that helps the machine understand what it's cutting into, and for simulation what's going on. To set up the stock, we go over here to box stock and we can double click on that, and you can see that my coordinates are 0, 0, 0, and then you can see my dimensions are pulling in there as well. And then in this corner is selected, and that's your 0, 0 in Rhino, and that's also how we're going to reference the piece on the router table. Go ahead and hit OK, and we can toggle the stock on down in this lower left corner. So the next operation I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys how to do the circles for these cutouts for our pieces. So I'm going to go to Machining Operations, 2-axis, Profiling, and I need to tell it what we're selecting and cutting, so I'm going to do Select Drive Containment Regions. I'm going to select those. You can just drag over them and select them, and then hit Enter. Then I'm going to go to our tool. We're going to use a 1/4 inch end mill set up for wood. We're going to go to Feeds and Speeds. 15,000 for the spindle speed is fine. I am going to make sure this cut is set to 150 though. Next I'm going to go to my clearance plane, which is Stock Max Z +1. You can see this red plane that's come up, and the machine will always lift up to that point when it's moving, so if a piece were to lift, a bit wouldn't catch it while it's moving. Next I'm going to go to sorting, and I'm going to do a minimum distance sort, so that's going to help it cut as efficiently as possible. Advanced cut parameters we won't do anything in. Entry exit I need to set to none for both of these, and then we'll go to cut levels. And cut levels we'll put in our thickness, so for 3/4 inch we'll type that in. Make sure to click in rough depth, and then I'm going to pull this slider to the middle point so it'll make 2 passes. Wherever you put that slider is the distance the machine's going to step down. Then I'll go to cut parameters, and on these circles I want it to cut on the inside of my line work. And now I can go ahead and hit generate. And you can see these blue circles that have come down and appeared. They're pretty small on these smaller holes, but we're good to go. I'm going to go ahead and relabel this holes 0.25 end. That's just a way to know which bit we're doing in the order of operation. Next I'm going to do these cutouts. These were the slots on one of the earlier pieces, and that's going to be actually another profiling. So I can actually copy this, relabel it, and as long as it's the exact same setup, you don't have any problems. So I'm going to call this notches _0.25 end. And we're going to use a 1/4 inch end mill for all of this. I'm going to double click in that, click remove all so I'm not cutting those circles again, and hit select drive containment. I'm going to go ahead and click these. Now I'm going to go ahead and have those cut on the outside for this example, so I'm going to go back into cut parameters and select outside. You'll notice as we go through, because I copied, all this stuff is staying in place. That copy will only carry over for a profiling, so keep that in mind. If your stuff won't carry for the engraving, we'll still need to enter that in. I'm going to go ahead and hit generate. You can see these two cyan lines that have come down. That is center of bit and showing where it's moving. And this red line is showing how the machine is going to lift up and move between those two pieces. I can also go ahead and do my wedges real quick. I can do a copy for those as well. If these were, because these are the same, I could have selected those all the same. This is just giving a little more control over how things get cut out. So I'm just going to call these wedges. Go from there. And once again, remove all, select drive containment regions. And I can select everything real quick, press enter, and then go ahead and hit generate. Now, for a lot of our projects, we just have that single line that's a 1/4 inch wide get cut. So on these two, I need the bit just to run right down the middle. Profiling will cut either outside or inside, and if you do not select, it will choose on its own which one it's going to choose. By going to an engraving, which is under the machining options, 2-axis engraving, we can select that, and it's going to be fairly similar to the profiling. Engraving will go right down the middle of the line, which is really nice. So I'll select drive containment regions, select both of those, and hit enter. My tool is still going to be that 1/4 inch end mill for wood. My speeds, 1500 is good. Once again, like I said earlier, we still need to go in and change this to 150. That's how fast the bit is getting pulled through the material. Sorting, I'll do a minimum distance sort. Entry exit, I don't need to do anything for engraving. Cut parameters, I need to tell it how far. So 0.75 again. Make sure to click in rough depth. And then down here, I'm going to split that. We don't want to be engaging all of the material in one pass with a 1/4 inch bit. We'd have a decent chance of snapping it. So that's why we make sure to split it into this 3/8 of an inch. Clearance plane is the only feature, once you set it, that will carry through. And you can see how that red plane came in. And go ahead and hit generate. And then I can do center line, 0.25 mil. Okay. And I also need to cut out this piece. So I'm going to copy this engraving, edges. Now, because everything's been set, once again, remove all to clear that selection, select drive containment regions, press enter, and generate. And you can see that carried everything over. You can also see that line work stopped at the 0 plane, so we're not cutting into the table. Right now, the order of operations is to do my holes, and then my notches, my wedges, and then my center lines, and then my edges. That's a pretty good order. By doing the holes, those are the smallest cuts. You try to do small to large cuts. If I really wanted to, I could pull my center lines up to change my order of operations for when we send this out to the machines. The order of operations is important because if we cut something out and then it's loose, the router will have the potential of moving it or throwing the material, so making sure you're cutting the pieces in order to have accurate cuts and to also cut safely. So now I can go to the setup and then go to simulate, which is this other tab, and then I can drop down here and hit play, and you can see the bit move around to all the different sections, and you can speed it up. And you can also simulate by moves, which goes through everything a little bit faster. So I'm going to go through that, and you can see how it moves through everything, and it's showing you that it's cutting all the way through. I'm going to go back to program. Because I'm using a 1/4 inch end mill, all at the same speeds, I'm going to actually post off of this setup one because all of these are the same. I make sure all my naming conventions are the same during this process. So if I did have a bit change, I would know that I would need to send out in 2 different posts. And the posts are the code that is written that the machine runs off of. It just tells it how fast to run the spindle and how fast to move the machine and the coordinates that it moves to. So I'm going to make sure setup 1 is selected, right click, and then hit post. And then it'll take just a sec. This dialog will pop up. You can name it whatever you want. RhinoCam 2D. And you need it posted as an NC file. And currently it says our current post is an Axes ATC A2MC. That is our current post that we want to be running. You also see it up here, and I'll show you how to change that as well. This is just going to post to the desktop right now, and this is the file that gets loaded onto the CNC router machine. So I'm going to hit post, and then it popped up this guy on my other monitor, and I dragged it over. So this is actual code that the machine runs off of, like this S15000. That's for the spindle to turn up to 15,000 RPM, and then you start seeing the different points as we move down through the different operations. So that's what you'll bring. You don't have to post right away. It's a real good idea to bring in your Rhino file with this, and Alex can check that for you. Something that needs to be noted is you have to be in inches for RhinoCam to pop up. If RhinoCam is not preloaded over here for you guys, just type in RhinoCam and it'll pop right up for you. If you're not in inches, you may have to save out to inches and then relaunch Rhino, but you should be able to get it. I think, and then this post should be here. It shouldn't be changed. We only change it out for the plasma cutter, but this should be here for you guys. We make sure to change it back. So you just double click and you select it from this drop down. But that should be there for you guys, and that should be it. If you have any questions, let us know.